Well, welcome. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Creative Standard Workshop. This program is part of the professional development wing of Big Medium. Through these workshops, we feature leaders in the creative community to fortify and promote the creative professional and economic success of local artists. Tonight, I'm very, very happy to bring you a couple of very special people to meet, good friends and people that are constantly teaching me and creating gorgeous things. It's Brittney Williams and Tamar Price from the Open Chair initiative. I've been working with them for a little bit now, and it's just a joy. It's always a happy moment to spend time with these ladies. So thank you so much for being here and telling us a little bit about the story of Open Chair and how you came up with this idea, and you little by little you create a reality when you're actually partnering with different associations, different groups, and just making good changes to the world. So without further ado, I give you Tamar and Brittney. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks. It's great to be here. Thank you, Coca. It's really great to be doing this specifically with Big Medium because East is one of the first events that we did to present Open Chair. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. So my name is Brittney Williams, and
I'm Tamar Price.
Yeah, and we are two of the four total members of Open Chair, the other one being Moyo and Chuka, who aren't with us today, but yeah.
They're with us in spirit.
Yeah. So I just wanted to introduce ourselves, introduce what Open Chair is, who we are, how we came to be, what we're up to, and then we'll just spend the next hour and a half together. One thing to note throughout this presentation or time that we spend together, please don't hesitate to ask questions. You can either type it up or Coca will be kind of monitoring those questions so that we can interact. It's really important. I know everyone has been on tons of Zoom calls. It's the end of your workday, so we just want to make this kind of like an interactive conversation where we can learn from each other and learn about each other.
Yeah, so I'll start with the intro. I'm Tamar Price. I'm from Dallas. I've lived in Austin or Central Texas, San Marcos area for almost 10 years now. Oddly enough, I went to Texas State. I currently work at the Austin Chronicle. I've been there for 5 years, a little bit over 5 years. And the Chronicle has been great in introducing me to a lot of people. In addition to that, I produce short film in general. So some narrative short film, interview style shorts, and the latest project has been Open Chair, which has taken another life as a photo project and something that's really aiming to highlight the Black community.
Yeah. And as I already said, my name's Brittney. I am born and raised in Austin, recently moved back about 3 years ago from New York. New York had kind of lost its luster and its shine for me. I'm an interior designer, was doing that previous to me moving back home. And so after college, I came back and was really kind of taken aback by the lack of faces that not only did I grow up with, but also that I just kind of could feel was missing in this community in Austin. And so our relationship, Moyo, Tamar, Chuka, who's my partner, he's also on the project with us. So Chuka and I were kind of a pair. Mm-hmm. But then Moyo and Tamar, I met Tamar at a South by Southwest party.
Actually for film.
Yep, for film. And I was terrified to walk up to her because I know she's totally harmless, but I think my introvert, I don't know, my ego was kind of big then, but I was terrified to walk up to her. So Chuka walked up to her and was like, did you do this film? And she said yes, and I was like, okay, that's definitely them. And then our friendship kind of evolved. There was we actually spoke that night, so there's some parts that I'm missing.
We were 4 of the 7 Black people at this particular party.
Surprise.
So, you know, it was not hard to spot each other. And I was there with Beth, my collaborator at the time. And so, yeah, we all just started a friendship from there.
Yep. And then let's see, Moyo and I just read Moyo's, his name was buzzing when I came back to Austin, and I kind of like marked him as a person that I wanted to meet and interact with. And so he had just been featured in Tribeza for a couple of slides. And I just reached out to him. I was like, hey, let's link up for coffee. I want to get to know you. And so Moya and I, became friends after that. And we'll go into kind of what Open Chair is, because it's an easy segue into kind of how it formed. Previous to that, Moyo and Tamar already knew each other.
Yeah, I had just met Moyo a couple weeks before through another
It all
friend.
happened really fast.
This is how small, and this is another segue, but that's what's great about Austin's creative community is it's very small, and you can meet a lot of people very easily and determine your strengths and the things you bring to certain projects and, you know, create onward from there. Yeah, so I just met Moyo a couple weeks before, and when Brittney was telling me about that project idea, she was like, yeah, I have this photographer in mind. And then she told me, I was like, wait, what? I just met him. So yeah, that's how that worked out.
Yeah, and rewind a little bit, kind of the project idea in my head was really just at that time an idea. It was a conversation that I was having internally, like, how do I make visible faces that are becoming erased? And I say becoming because I feel like specific to the East Side, gentrification had been going on for years now. We have a Whole Foods and a Target, which still blows my mind, or it's soon to open later on, still blows my mind. So I was really wanting to shed light on those faces. How do we still keep the memory of those people, the spaces they inhabited, and what the legwork that they laid, you know, essentially for even gentrification and the arts period in the city. And so I was kind of racking my brain, like, what is it? Is it like a dinner series? Is it a zine? Is it a like a conversation that we constantly have, kind of like roundtable things that are filmed? I just was racking my brain, and it was just so awesome that both Tamar, who has an awesome producing background, is just great at like corralling the forces, and then Moya, who's just incredibly talented. It kind of like started to all click in that moment in terms of the way that we make these faces visible is literally through capturing the faces and having that work speak for itself, having their faces speak for itself. And it's kind of evolved into us working on various projects, just completing East, just as in last November, but yeah.
We have some other things in the works that we'll be able to share in the coming months, you know. But in the meantime, we can talk about, flow into the intention of the project, which Brittney kind of just highlighted, but how intention is a first step for something that you could start to do, just as she mentioned, when you're thinking about, if you have an idea, kind of sussing out that core of the idea that you can then base everything else on.
Yeah.
Do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, I'm gonna actually start sharing the screen. You will no longer see our faces, as cute as they are. But towards the end, at the questions part, we'll go back to y'all actually seeing us. So I'm gonna share screen, and these are just gonna be. Jordan,
pause.
I don't know if we're disabled to share, Jordan or Coca. Just let me know when we can do that, and then we'll start sharing the screen. But back to the flow, going back to intention of the project. This is, I don't know and I'd love to hear this maybe towards the end, kind of what, if there are any projects that y'all are working on that you're just trying to figure out what is the intention. And for us, Open Chair, and how do you make that, oh, great, I'm going to share the screen. 2 seconds. Perfect. All right. Hopefully everyone can see this. These are some portraits that Moyo took in a project we led, an open portrait studio that we did in HT at HT MLK of last year, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Some beautiful faces. So phase one, in terms of how do you create something from an idea to a like tangible item or to fruition.
Can we let them linger on the faces a little bit
Oh,
longer?
yeah.
And just
They
like,
are nice. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna talk to y'all a bit about project intention. Now for me, Open Chair was something that was so close to my heart that the intention, like I knew the intention, which was highlighting faces that looked like mine. I don't want to say giving them a voice because they already had a voice, but
Hi, guys, sorry to interrupt. We are seeing a black screen here. We cannot see the presentation.
Sharing is paused. Bring your shared video to the front. What about now? No.
No.
Sorry, one moment, y'all. I'm going to try it again to see what it is. What about now?
We can see it now. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
And thank you for everyone for letting us know.
Yes, please. Thank you guys. That's what we like. Y'all are paying attention. We love it. I'm just going to make this. Okay, there we go. So it's just saying that in terms of intention, Open Chair for me, the intention was already there. It was more so that, so this one is kind of like a cheating one a little bit. The intention was already there for me. I just didn't know how to make the intention a tangible item. But I think my suggestion for trying to figure out what is the how or what is the why of a project is, that's something that I know a lot of times it's like, okay, let's do the mission statement of something, or let's figure out like a tagline, or like a one sentence, you know, kind of like a marketing scheme sort of thing, conversation that we can just plug in. But if the intention is not something that's already known, I would just say to go ahead and work through these next steps that we're going to present and speak to, so that it will start to snowball. I think through conversation with different people and with yourself, bouncing off ideas with people, it will start to become clear. But if that is something that you're still not comfortable with in it, and for a specific project, it really matters that you have your intentions super clear. For those projects, I would start with who is your target audience, and not in a like, I'm targeting these people, so I'm excluding everyone outside of that. It's just who am I trying to speak to with this project? And that's something that only you know the answer, only your group of people that you enroll in this project with you are gonna know, and really how is it that they want to be spoken to, and also how am I going to reach out to them, sort of thing. So have those two questions in your mind when thinking about the intention of a project, because I think you'd be surprised not only what comes to you, but also what's revealed in the work that you're about to engage on and the work that people have done, because no idea is the first idea of anything. But,
right.
So,
yeah. So let's say you have your intention together. The next thing is kind of what we call the chessboard, so to speak. And so that is, we just talked about how the members of this team were put together, and it was very organic because, for one, Brittney and Chuka, you know, already together. Me and Brittney were friends, and we, when you're working in creative circles of people, you tend to just know other creative people who are willing to do projects. And then Moyo was brought in at the same time. So that's the way we put it together, in a very organic manner, to see who could serve the project in what way. And so as you have your intention, it helps to have that core identity, and then to then say, who do I know that could bring something to this ideation, and how could they help? And that goes into also the resources they have, and that's another point we'll bring up later. But so think about who you know. If you're creative, I'm sure you know a lot of people already. And if not, there's ways and mixers. Of course, we're in a different time these days, but with a lot of virtual events and with everybody kind of bolstering their social media presence, I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to get to know people that they maybe would not have engaged with before, that maybe you're like-minded. Being like-minded is another key point too, because you can have different strengths, but if you kind of have the same thing in mind, you can bring a lot of different things to a project to make it stronger. So I would say, in order to get that team together, reach out in this time to see who's doing what and kind of see where you could coalesce and merge on some things. So that brings us to then our resources. So you have a team together, you say, okay, this is the thing we want to do. What do we have at our disposal now that can help us get to that end goal?
Yeah, and to your, with your, this is kind of why we like are going in order, but your chess, like your boards, your members really matter, because you're also not picking people, you're not only picking people for what they can bring to the project, but you're selecting people for who they know. And I know that the word networking, or kind of like, I don't want them to think I'm using them sort of thing. It's like, yeah, there's that part. You do it in a way that's genuine and human. And hopefully we have the skills to, everyone has the skills to do that when corralling people or enrolling people. But it's also, you really want to think about who in my circle has leverage that we can collectively use to get the job done. I think that's something that often, and not being shy about that. Like, if you know someone or want to know someone who has something that you feel like would be beneficial, or a platform that you would love to share your story with or your project on, write those down. Like your chessboard exercise, that you write that down. You write down who the people are, the pros and cons, separate from y'all's working relationship, but like, why is it that you want this person's eyes or thoughts or their feedback on your project? Have that be very clear, because that's gonna like really corral the people that you end up wanting to, I keep using the enrollment conversation or enroll word, but it really is something to keep at the forefront. And that leads you into your resource pool, because depending on who it is that you've chosen to enroll in your intention in your project, it's going to open up a flood of possibilities. And there are things that you just do not know would be, or wouldn't even consider that would be like the perfect platform or the perfect grant for you to apply to, or the perfect festival for you to try and enter into or attend. But that only happens, like, the more people you enroll, the more like eyes and ears are out on your behalf, on the project's behalf. So again, this resource pool, similar to the chessboard piece, is like literally write down any sort of grant application, project deadline, local festival,
events like brand partnerships. Maybe there's a lot of small artist communities here. There's a big one, obviously Big Meeting is an example of that, but there's a lot of communities that could be leveraged and also collaborated with to help you get to where you're going, and y'all help each other. I think that's a very key thing with artists and creative projects in general, is this community of people. So really leaning into that community to see how can we help each other, because I think through, specifically with this project, there's been ways that maybe we've gone to Houston Tillotson for something, and we know that that partnership helps both of us in some way. with an event or aspect, or we've gone to ACC, we understand how it works for both of us. So because you have your intention clear, you know who's in it, you know what your resources are, you can then speak to what it is you want to offer and what the other person could offer for you.
For sure. And also another thing with the resource pool, don't get stopped by if there's a like an application and it lists, you know, you need to have this many community projects done, you need this many photographs, you need to have this many board members. If you read that and you don't fit the requirement, I mean, hopefully you're aligned somehow, but if you don't hit every notch on that application, still apply.
Yeah.
Because one, you never know what, like, people often do not know what they're looking for until it's right in front of them. So don't count yourself out just because you're reading what someone told you. Like I said, people do not know what they're looking for until it's right in front of them. So I would just say be bold in terms of your resource pool, think big, and don't limit yourself just because you feel like, oh, I know so-and-so who didn't get in, and so we're not even near their level. Like, nope, that you stay in your lane, you focus, you know, your intention of your project, and you still apply despite, like, I guess, insecurities or like doubts you might have about
that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
A good example of some resources we had is Moyo is a photographer. He literally knows every person in Austin, I think, at this point. So he has a lot of connections. With me working at the Chronicle, there's some just community arts connections there. Brittney has worked with developers and designers and other people who know how to put an aesthetic together. Chuka is a great mind and a filmmaker and a thinker, and so he can help us put words to what it is we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So all of those things help to create what it is we have going on now.
For sure.
Yeah. Titles. Okay. So we're bouncing back and forth here.
Yeah.
So titles kind of goes back to our chessboard piece and knowing who's doing what. So you have, let's say, who's good at doing what, simply put. We already know Moyo's gonna be doing the photos, period. Like, no. We know that we know that Chuka's great with words. Chuka and I are great with words and putting stuff together and presenting it to the outside world. Whereas Moyo is really good at speaking to other creatives who can help us in the long run of the project. Component. Right.
Yeah.
Because there's been times in meetings where we're like, okay, I know how to communicate this to a layman, but Moyo knows how to communicate it to another creative. Another artist.
Yeah.
And has those terms. So know what everyone's strengths and weaknesses are. We ain't even really got to bring up the weaknesses. You just know your strengths.
Don't focus on the weaknesses.
Know your strengths and bring those fully. And with that, you give room for other people's strengths to flourish and for the project to become stronger. So that's a very simple way to put what the title is. And because you've given people titles or responsibilities, they can then take ownership of those things, and you're able to push the project forward. So we're not just stalling on, okay, y'all, we need to do this, who's doing
who's
what,
gonna do right,
and you're kind of going in a circle. So hand it to somebody, they can take it and run with it, and then there's that accountability factor of, okay, we had this done on this date, and we'll get into the timeline later, but that's a intro on the titles and taking ownership of the pieces of the project.
Mm-hmm. And also one other thing that would help in this phase, in the title phase, is just having a conversation within your chessboard, back to your chessboard, within your members of what are you like absolutely not interested in owning. Like, I'm interested in marketing, but I'm not interested in, like, you know, project deadlines or timelines. Like having a clear, so that everyone's clear, like, I'm not interested in that. If you are like not interested in that, chances of you being productive at it are like, it's little to zero. So just having a clear, just so everyone is in conversation about what gets each member excited, so that you can hand that off to the appropriate person, I feel like is something that would be really beneficial for any project. And like Tamar said, Open Chair was kind of easy, like.
Yeah, very organic. So we're giving
Yeah.
we're giving some structure to help, help the people, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Does anybody have any questions so far? Anything we need to like?
Would we be able to see the question?
Yeah, I'll stop sharing just so I know like that y'all are with us. But if there's any questions or if everyone is good.
Okay.
All right.
We'll keep going then.
Yeah. No, like, guess we're really good or y'all are really quiet. No, I'm kidding. Let's see. So the next one that we want to talk to y'all about is in terms of, I think we actually missed one. No, we're good. Mm-hmm. Is event pool. So this is, you have already you have your resource pool. Now your event pool is where you mark those events, but you're really just throwing darts at events or projects or deadlines. Yeah. I don't want to say low-hanging fruit deadlines where you're like, oh yeah, we'll definitely get into that. Yeah. But one that this is a good application or a good test deadline for everyone in the group. Like, this is our first one. It's going to be awesome for us to see how we work together, see if you can really handle, if you need help, if one role needs more than one person on it, if it's really just like you're dancing together, you're testing out who would be a great fit and making sure, but your event pool is where you pick, I would say maybe like 2 or 3 things, and you could do them like months out. So that they're on the horizon, everyone knows, but you're just picking some events that like, okay, we can do this, and it's going to create momentum for the project. Yeah. Like, you're not stagnant. It's not like trying to get into Oxford, like it's something that you can do now. The chances of you getting it are very high. Heck, maybe even from your resource pool, someone who will, put your name forward in the application process, something to that event. But just really something, an event pool where you're just like, yeah, we can definitely do these. Let's do these in the next 3 weeks or in the next month.
And we're saying event, but event really, scope is like, it could be a grant application. It could be a program you want to apply for. It could be a market, a festival, a market. Let's say if you're trying to make physical art in that way, like maybe you're trying to have a deadline for, okay, I want to be able to present at this artist market or this festival by this time. Determine what those things are, so then you can work to then create deadlines for everybody. And again, those are things, like Brittney said, that are accessible to you. But while it's accessible, you still want to not have that imposter syndrome. You still want to dream. You want to think big.
Right.
And maybe in that thinking big, you can take it into smaller chunks of things. So if you need like a deck or a 1-pager or whatever, like determine, okay, what is the mission of this? If I wanted to bring on other collaborators, or I needed to get money for something, for example, because that's a big thing that a lot of people don't talk about, is flat out, you need money to do a lot of things. So make it easy for someone to say yes to you. So I have this laid out. I have like, this is what this intention is. This is the team. This is what they've done. This is what we're bringing to the world, basically. And that could be a 1-pager, like I said. It could be a pitch deck. It could be something of that sort. But you have those materials in order to help further what it is, the program or the event that it is you're trying to do. So.
Right. And we did something similar when we when we were starting to look into conversations about East Austin Studio Tour, was just like, let's create a pitch deck, couple pages. We used those photos that were at the beginning of the slide. It was an event that we already did, check mark, like, let's just use that to start enrolling people in the conversation of, this is what Open Chair is. These are the people involved. This is our intention. We would love it if you gave us $10 million.
And to even back it up further from that, our first open studio was at the MLK Fest at HT, And I think it was Moyo who had the idea, because we wanted to be able to just have an open studio for Black people to come in and get their photos taken.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a lot harder to do that just picking a random day to do that.
Or driving around
right.
East Austin or going to the Austin History Center, something.
Right. So we picked a day where there's already going to be a lot of Black. We went to HT MLK Fest. If you're not going to see any Black people in Austin,
that's the day. Those are the couple hours, damn it.
So that was already a nice flow of people.
Yeah.
We used the people, going back to our resource pool, we used the people we already knew there to say, hey, this is what we're thinking of doing. They know us already. They can, and even if you don't be discouraged, if you don't have a lot of resources, or you think you don't, because you may have more resources than you think you do.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, honestly, if you're able to just clearly ask for what it is you want, a lot of times people will be willing to help you.
Yes.
Just asking for help, clearly articulating what it is you need. But to go back to that point, that was kind of our first event, so to speak, that we did. And it was based off of another event. So using what is around Austin, if you're in Austin, Austin has a lot of stuff going on. Till the Rona took over, but
not the Rona.
There's a lot of things you can do to help bolster your intention of the project. So
yeah, and we're also talking like large scale productions or grants and stuff that have like a notable following. It doesn't even have to be that high. It could be like, I'm gonna do a neighborhood block party or a neighborhood flea market or whatever your thing is. Like, you don't have to go to the moon, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
I'm finally gonna show these to somebody.
Yes, exactly. And somebody could be your family, it could be your aunts, it could be, like, you don't have to think like, I'm getting, a group of Austin top 30 billionaires or whatever in one room. That doesn't have to be your marker. It can really be just something that's tangible, something that makes sense, it's relevant.
Yeah. So that's the event pool. Project timeline. So you have what it is you're trying to do first. From there, you'll work backwards to create, okay, so this is the day I want it done, August 12th. What needs to happen leading up to August 12th for me to have that? So from then, you're going to talk with your team. You're going to create a deliverables timeline. So we need, for us, it would be photos, or it would be renting whatever necessary equipment or securing a location for the shoot. So we need to do that at least 2 to 3 weeks ahead of schedule, or just determining what the appropriate time markers are for you, and using the strengths from each of your team members to help accomplish those things.
Maybe touch on like what it was specific to East.
For
like
East.
The actual, like how we got linked up with Furman and Kill, maybe.
Yeah, so for East, we, Coca actually, the Projecto had a show at East like in years past, and because Moyo and I both knew Coca, so we were able to say, hey.
Resourceful.
Yep. We were able to say, hey, we're doing a thing. We're going to apply for East. How can you help us? She said, oh, I did this with these people last year. They would probably be open to helping you now. Now, what we did in that time was make sure that we had a deck. At that point, we had created the deck like a week or so before we knew we were going to meet with Furman and Kill. Furman and Kyle.
We always do.
So we had a deck ready. We also, from then, we had to apply. I think that we had to apply for East before that. So that was like a first thing where we had kind of our mission statement and all that together. We had the physical works ready or digital works ready. So we had photos ready for that. That's another thing you can add to your deliverables, having the work ready, having a deck, having whatever amount you're requesting, like if you're requesting money or if you're requesting event space, having exactly what it is you need outlined. And yeah, from there we went in to talk with Furman and Kyle. They were extremely helpful and gracious and definitely wanting us to display the art there. And yeah, it worked out great from there. So the duties, honestly, on the day of, and that's something we'll get into later, on the day of is really kind of all hands on deck at that point. But Brittney's like traumatized. But
no,
it was really great. And that's the good thing about having, I'm going to sidebar for a second. That's the good thing about having your intention and a great team together, is that even if something feels like it could be hectic, it's not hectic, because you know what you're there for and you are vibing with the people that you're working with.
Yeah. Very important.
Yeah. Was that covering most of you?
Yeah, and just heads up, Furman & Kyle is an architecture firm based here in Austin. Their offices are above Miranda Bennett on the east side next to Hillside Pharmacy. And so they were really generous.
Yeah. And because we understand the intention, we're going to keep bringing up
bring
these
it,
words.
Bring it back. You got it.
Because we knew the intention, we understood that Furman & Kyle knows where they are. They know the history of that neighborhood.
East
and so
11.
when you bring a project that highlights the history of the neighborhood, chances are in a city like Austin, you're going to have people that are willing to help with that. And by tapping into that resource pool, you can access those things. Because I wouldn't have thought off top, like, oh, let's go to an architecture firm and like displays it. But they had a beautiful deck and just a beautiful event space for us. And it was also a way for us to be creative with how we displayed the photos. So yeah, that's a good example of how we used the timeline. So from there, it was like, okay, we need the prints by this day. We need to arrive at this time to set up everything. We need to have spoken with, do we need an alarm code? Do we need a key? Like, what do we need to get into the building?
Who's our contact person? If it rains, what's our rain plan? Like, and again, East, a lot of those deadlines were already set for us by big mediums. That's East. I think it was great because we had like our own Coca emailing us like, did you fill out this? Did you do this? Come get your stakes to put in the yard, you know?
Yes, and that's the good thing about the kinds of programs you can apply for, is that they may have those built-in deadlines for you to work off of already. Right. So if you're not a deadline person, you know, that's maybe a good way to go.
Yeah, you might want to start getting good. And then next we'll go into, so once you have your project timeline set out, you'll go into what it takes to make it happen. And this is really where it's less about conceptual, like, this is who we are. Here's a deck that shows who we are. This is what we want to do. Like, that yard would be perfect. This is where you're in the nitty gritty in the woods making it happen. And you spoke to that just a little bit.
In the woods, mosquito bites and all.
You spoke to that a little bit ago in terms of, for us, we needed a backdrop, literally painting a backdrop for the photo shoot in Moya's studio. So you're really wanting to look at, and this is where your organizational tools and whoever you set to be, whoever in your team is really good at organization and making sure that things on the list are getting crossed off. This is where they really get to shine. They're holding people accountable. They're holding dates and deadlines in their mind. But you're making it happen is where it's self-explanatory. You are making sure that all of your supplies and equipment are ready. You have it. If you don't have it, it's ordered, or it will be available by the date that you need it. You're making sure that whoever you need to hire for the project, that their work is completed by then, or that they have all the, tools to complete their job that you hired them for. You're making sure that the space is ready, or any sort of, like, your editing is done if you're applying for a grant. This is where you're kind of like on top of each other, making sure that all of your pieces to, like, make the project happen are supplied for. If you need money, that you have the money in the bank account or in someone's account, and those things are being purchased. But we use Google Sheets to communicate. There's 5 of us, or 4 of us, well, 5, I guess, including Coca. the Furman and Kyle team, we were emailing like crazy, just trying to like make sure that everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, for bigger files, there was Dropbox for files. Yeah, so there's definitely think about what organizational tools you want to have for it. To jump back to the timeline, if you want to create those deliverable deadlines and you want to put them in a calendar, that would be a great help. And if there is like calendar notifications you put, I know people just love calendar notifications. If you use those and somebody gets an email like, hey, this is supposed to be done today, like make sure that's done. Or so the really fun ways of getting the project done.
Now you're having fun.
You know, and this is, again, going back to intention, this is why it's important to be connected to what it is you're doing. Because if you're not, all this is going to be like,
it's going to be work, it's going to be tiresome, and you will lose interest.
Yeah, you'll lose steam.
Yeah,
so
because you're trying to check stuff off. And I know that different people I know I've used Slack, I've used Trello, I know there's Google Sheets, different, just find out what works for your team, whatever people are mostly going to use that, so that you are like in it to win it and things are really clear. There's no like, what time are we meeting today? It's in the Google Calendar. Don't text me about that. Like, it is a standing
thing
meeting.
With the meetings is creating, maybe we had at a certain point we had meetings like regularly.
Oh yeah, that's very true. Like leading up to East, it was like, come over to the house and we need to hash stuff out for sure. And that's really helpful. I mean, again, the Rona has other plans, but if you can meet with people Zoom.
Yeah, we trust that we've been distancing, you know, this is, but yeah, so making a time now in the age of Zoom and Google Meet, making that time to talk with each other face to face, and hash things out.
For sure. And one thing I would say with the dates, I mean, each project is going to have its max amount or amount of members. So between the four of us, it was really easy for the four of us to schedule, like, can you meet on Tuesday? Yes. 6:30? No. 5 o'clock? Yes. Everyone could do Tuesday at 5 o'clock. But I'm aware that like when you start to involve more people, the scheduling and the timing of things kind of gets hairy. But again, leaving it to one person, if there's a timeline, I would schedule that timeline like a week before it's actually due, just for any like fumbles or any like, you know, you missed the touchdown, anything can happen, but you really want to.
Sports analogies, love them.
I don't really even but you just want to allow yourself that grace and that time cushion for like errors or anything. That's to really happen.
Important. You know, give yourself grace. Don't try to be a superhero with the deadline.
No.
Like say, okay, this will maybe take me a week to do. Okay, give yourself 2 weeks to do it, week and a half.
Exactly.
And there's times where you're just in a crunch and you have to get it done. But leading up to that, try to give yourself the cushion. And that also takes the stress away from it too.
That part.
Yeah.
And then
so you've made it happen. The event, the grant application, the program, the festival, whatever it is, has happened. To back up just a second, if you want to assign day of roles, that's also a good thing you can do to make sure that somebody, okay, this person is handling this. I don't have to think about that. I'm over here thinking about, you know, how the people are going to interact with what it is I'm doing, or I'm making sure we have the business cards or whatever laid out,
printed, ready for pickup or whatever.
So having that day of checklist ready too is good.
Absolutely.
So you've done all that, then you're like, okay guys, we did it, break. It's like, no, come back together actually and debrief, and let's talk about what it is that we experienced, what do we like, what do we want to change in the future. What are some connections that really worked out, maybe some that we want to change, and that's a brief. You want to speak more about that a little bit?
Well, I feel like the closure of things is really important, and so this is really your chance to like, I don't want to say like check people, but like because that sounds harsh, but like it's your chance to kind of express like, this didn't work when we did it this way, or that didn't work when we, you know, sent it a day before, and next time moving forward, we're going to send it 4 days ahead, or we're no longer going to work with that vendor, or I think he likes it when we hand it in this way, or you have like all of those notes, and make note of it because it's all helpful information, right? Like it should all be turned around for your good and for your benefit for the next thing that you use. But this is really your time to just kind of check in, hold yourself and other people accountable, kind of just hash out what you would like to see done differently, what you could have done different. And most of all, acknowledge your team members. Y'all did it. It was completed. You got the grant, whatever it is that you were aiming for. This is like your time to just wrap it up, put a bow on it, be grateful, and just make note of all the things that you would like to.
And honestly, getting it done from the idea, the intention, all the way to, even if you just said, all right, I'm going to show this to my mom, finally.
Yeah.
Like, that is an accomplishment.
100%.
If it's just you, debrief yourself. You're like, all right, so
yeah, right?
What do we do? What
you
are we
and a
going to
glass
do
of wine.
differently?
Exactly. I was talking to myself. Yeah, for sure.
What are we going to do differently? How can we, what are some other goals we can create based on this?
Right.
Yeah.
And a chance for you to dream bigger as well. I think that that is something that, like, with, and we can kind of let you just speak to
get into
Heritage grant, or the grant with the city, because that's really like your opportunity as well. You can go back to your events pool and like, all right, cool, we smashed that. Like, what's the one that we, you know, we thought, oh, you can
keep the momentum.
Yeah.
Oh, so as we keep that momentum, an example of that is we finished East. Somebody from ACC that was working on our Day of Racial Healing was interested in displaying the prints there. So that helped us keep momentum and form potential partnerships with people, and just knowing the community, because ACC was about to have this whole office dedicated to racial healing.
Yeah.
So it was great to know that was happening, for one thing, and to see how we could partner with them in the future, and that could be just a long-standing community partnership. And from that, again, going back to the resources, you've done that, maybe you've gotten some coverage for it, or you know how to do that, and people see it. Okay, what is the next step? For us, it was a grant that we're currently working on completing, and that, because we had done all the work beforehand, we could hand something to them and say, hey, this is what it is. This is how we could service this project specifically, or this grant specifically. And we'll see the fruits of that in the coming months. Can't share a ton now, but the intention is the same. The intention was always to display Black people, and it's expanded people of color, Mexican American people, the Latino community here, because we were very clear on what it was. You know, then what else you can do to service that intention. So maybe in at the beginning it was just, we just want to do portraits, and then it became, oh, we're going to display these. Oh, now we're going to do this whole other project that's going to be in a tangible form. Or now it's going to be, let's see what walls we can put these up on. So it just flows. And another thing about having key team members is somebody like Moyo, who can come in and say, oh, I've done X, Y. He's done all these things. Okay, well, I know that he knows that will look good on that wall, or this would be a great project to reference in order to move something else forward. You know, people that come in and they expand your ideas. They let them breathe, and they respect them and let them be where they are. But they also say, you could also do this. We could also do that. And it would be like huge. And we were sitting there like, what? We could, what? We didn't even think of that.
Right.
So appreciating.
Don't mind if I do.
So appreciating, again, when you debrief, like what it is everybody brings. And hopefully you're doing that throughout anyway. And that's why you chose to work together.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another way to keep that momentum, is going back. You kind of go back to square one. You go back to, okay, now what are our resources? Hopefully you've added to your resources. Hopefully you've added to that chessboard, so to speak, of people who can help you in moving this project along.
And and this just came to me, but also between the debrief, between the making it happen, the project debrief, and the keeping momentum, kind of think of you are now the face of your project, and you want this to like spawn into other opportunities. And so kind of keeping with the momentum is thinking of your project, your idea, your intention as an octopus. Like you have the central head and then all the tentacles. And those tentacles have the ability to just kind of reach different people. But you as the head, that's really your job to make sure that these tentacles are touching the right people, the information is clear, the intention is set, and it's being funneled through the right channel. But I feel like between the making it happen, this is where you're talking to the most people. People hopefully know about you by then, or know about what you're up to. And you always want to keep an ear out, not necessarily like you're at, someone's taking your order at the taco shop and you're like, oh, I heard that you like photos. Here's my business card. It's like chill. But like when there's a time for you to just listen to who is around you, who they might know, for you to keep kind of with that octopus like mentality for your project,
And on some of the past projects I've worked on, we could have been in the midst of like pre-production on something or writing something, and we made a point to go to certain events where we knew that community would be our community, because it's our community. So we went to these things, we were able to talk to people and just be ourselves and bring that to it, and just talk naturally about what it was we're doing. Or maybe sometimes you don't talk specifically about what you're doing, but you're able to form a connection with somebody, and then from that basis you can go and share things with each other from there. But keeping in mind, that's another thing you can add to your event pool potentially. Like, so maybe you have a grant or a festival in mind. Okay, well, leading up to that, what are some other things you can go to? We're keeping y'all busy.
I know, right? If you don't have a full-time job right now.
What are some other things you can do in this age? Maybe you're at a virtual seminar or something, or you've reached out to certain people who are behind certain festivals, or you've always wanted to know how something worked. Now is the time to go and approach those people and ask, because they ain't doing nothing at the house. So like approach them and ask them what it is, and have your deck or one page, or even if just a little paragraph about what it is you're doing, to have that ready to present to people. That's a good way to help always keep your momentum. Yeah,
for sure. And then
now we have questions.
Not questions. And so, now we have some questions. I'd love to, we have some time, so we are open to going back into slides. If there's like specific, I'd love to hear what like drew you to participate in this time with us, like that we could speak to individually. If you have any questions, any clarifications, like now's your time to ask. Just put it in the chat. We would love, 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 love to hear from everyone who's just listened to us talk for the past hour.
Guys, and feel free to, for the participants, feel free to introduce yourselves and tell us like what are you thinking, if you have a good project that we can, that they can guide you.
Yes, please. I'm gonna stop sharing, but please start asking us questions.
There's Q&A. I think there's one.
Let's see. Hi, Faye.
Hi. How do you find a team when you have an idea all on your own, but don't necessarily know people in your community?
Great question.
What is your idea? Like, start with that. So it sounds like you have the intention, right? So then you're like, okay, well, let's say the idea is your work, the idea caters to queer people, for example. You're like, okay, where do queer people at in Austin? Where can I go to find people who are like-minded? Honestly, a lot of the times in the past for projects, we have found a lot of people. I found a lot of people on Instagram because that's where you just are.
Slide into the DMs. Make your way.
This is where you are. good old Googles, and Google can be so broad. So it's like, where do I even start? So think about what it is you need, you know. If it's an event, do I need an event planner? Do I need somebody that has done that before? What are some events that I've been to or seen that look interesting? Maybe I can hit those people up, and maybe they have suggestions on whether they want to help out, or maybe they know other people who could help out. If it's, say, an art project you want to get off the ground, maybe conceptualize it. Okay, now what do I need for this? What equipment do I need? Do I know people that can do that? If not, what are some organizations? I would say for this question, to really tap into the community if you're not. I think a huge part of being a creative and an artist is tapping into the community, because we literally cannot do this without other people.
No.
It's not possible. You can make the thing, let's say if you're a painter or a sculptor, you can do all that, but you're going to eventually need representatives to kind of get you into certain shows. You're going to need some people that know how to market you, unless you're like a jack of all trades, you do it on your own. But eventually there's going to need to be some interaction with other people, and the forming of that community. So for that, I would say maybe start small, talk to the friends you do have and be like, hey, do you know anybody that does XYZ? Do you, or if there are local publications where you can reach out to people, blogs, Facebook groups. Do people still do Facebook? Instagram groups, you know, stuff like that.
Meetups.
Yeah, meetups. People are doing all kinds, not physical meetups, but, you know, virtual meetups.
Yeah.
Really take the time to, if you're gonna have this huge idea in mind, whittle it down and say, okay, I'm gonna use the event example like I did before. What's an event that's an example of this? How did they do that? Break that down into a baby version that you could do, and then find the baby version of the people that you would need to help do that. So.
Yeah. And my stepdad, I'm like that old person, my grandpa always said, but my stepdad always says, it's not who you know, but who knows you, right? And there takes a level of like, and I'm very much like this. I'm like, I don't know if like I should reach out.
We don't seem like it, but we shy.
We are definitely shy. It takes a level of you like stepping out of your comfort zone, so that people know who you are, what you're about, and just start with one person. Pick one person. If you're applying for a grant, look in your city or in Austin. What are nonprofits? Because all nonprofits have a grant writer or know of a grant writer. Ask them, call them, email them. Hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm working on this. I'd love to know who are some of the people you have help with your grant writing process. That's a grant writer right there. You have to, like, if you're not willing to kind of not put your neck out there, but like show face, people aren't going to find you in your house. You know, they're not going to find you at the bar, and they're not going to find you in your group of friends who you just continually talk about this project that you would love to do something with one day.
If your friends are trying to like, listen, go talk to somebody, go get this done.
Go make it happen.
So putting yourself out there is a huge part of it. And the more support you have in that, the more community you have in that, the easier it gets eventually.
And the larger your resource pool.
Thank you. Also, people, you can raise your hand and we can open your mic if you want to ask the question directly. In the meantime, I have Sheila Jackson. She asks, I was writing a book where I'd lost interest. How can I get motivated again?
What was your intention for that book? Were you really connected to? I would say if you're losing interest in something, you're probably not really connected, or perhaps you have to, because it's human to like have gusto for something and then to lose it. Like, that's perfectly normal. A thing that helps with team projects and having accountability is the accountability, and saying like, having a person that's like, hey, I know your goal was to have like an outline of this book done. Did you do that? You know, and that could be a friend, that could be just a work colleague or whoever, but sometimes you have to make yourself motivated to do something. You can create schedules for yourself. You can even, and this is something I'm working on myself, child, because whether it's you're using certain deadlines or points of completion. Like say I want to write a chapter in this book. My reward at the end of this is that I am going to get XYZ or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So kind of using like a reward system, that's a way to help. But really, again, it always comes back to, at least for us, like the intention and really being connected to that, because that's going to be like the driving force behind the finished product. It's like when I'm done with this is what I want the world to have received from this.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to get deep, but that's a big part of it. But some tools for motivation, I think, are kind of having that reward system in place, the accountability in place, and starting with small chunks of it. So if it seems really overwhelming, because that's a whole book. Congratulations, first of all,
sis.
For
I ain't
you.
even finished a book. Reading a book this summer, not ever in my life, but this summer. Like, kudos
to you for like having that desire and even beginning. So like,
for sure,
give yourself kudos, like pat yourself on the back, like, hey, I did that at least. Look, okay, I got a title. Boom. That's more than a lot of people have at the time. So,
and also check in with yourself and see, like, am I making this process more difficult than it needs to be? Because the more you make something difficult, it's just a procrastination tactic. And procrastination is linked to like worthiness. Like anxiety. You prolong something because you don't think you are worthy, or that you will finish it, or that anybody will care, or that, you know, it will be good.
Maybe get a therapist also.
I know, right? We're speaking we're like, we should probably provide some numbers.
You know, capital city, there's anyway, but a lot of that, I'm joking, but serious, because when you are creating something that is artistic, that kind of comes from the heart, there's a lot of you
that shows up.
That.
100%.
So you want to make sure you're able to show up fully.
For sure. Yeah.
You know, write some affirmations, girl.
Yeah. Write them on your mirror, or the person you. What else? Any other questions?
Oh, wait, I see one.
Oh,
thanks,
what's up,
Dowan.
Oakland? That's awesome. Is there anything else?
Yeah.
Sheila, I hope that answered your question. Oh, okay.
Oh, hey, this is multi-part.
Okay, Kate Murray.
Do you have a stance on archives and what work they include or don't include, and or existing efforts or intentions to include your work in an archive or catalog space beyond your own organization of the materials you're collecting?
I'm curious for how
I'm going to read that out loud. I'm curious for how archives, especially local, can become more community driven. Also, shameless plug for Faith. Rachel Dennis and I just started a monthly virtual gathering with Austin emerging art leaders.
Awesome.
Here y'all go.
Yeah, look, y'all got it.
To help tap into new networks and communities if you're interested. The next one is tomorrow, and I will focus on Skillshare. Could I share details? Yeah, yes. I mean, this ain't our thing, but
yeah, no, yeah. We're like, yeah.
And that was called Austin Emerging Arts Leaders.
Yes.
But I'm going to answer that question. Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
Archiving is a big thing that Moyo actually brought up at the onset of this project. It was like, there's archives from hundreds of years ago. Where are the archives for today? In other words, somebody's going to look back 50 years and go, what were they all doing? Were they all just on Instagram? Like, what? Did nobody stop and like put the archives somewhere in an academic space, or in like a space where it could be properly preserved? So yes, that is absolutely a huge goal of Open Chair, and that is we're ultimately working on towards.
That. We are working. We're doing. Yeah. There will be more to come, but absolutely. And it's really important too, like I was saying earlier in the conversation, for us with Open Chair and back to intention, is it's not like we're, giving the microphone to someone who doesn't own a microphone. It's really like, no, we're just highlighting what's already there. And so back to the archives, we acknowledge that there are people before and after us who are who have some similar questions, who already existed and were doing this type of work, and who will create this type of work and want those spaces to be shown. So it's at cornerstone of Open Chair, and something that we definitely were very aware of and want to highlight and bring to more people is the archival part of Black and Brown Faces in Austin.
Especially as everything changes so quickly.
Yeah.
You know, you want that piece to be like, okay, we were here though. We are here. We've moved into this space. So yeah. Answer. Okay, we've answered that.
What goes here? Done. All right. Any other questions? Comments? Concerns?
Any other things to plug away?
Yeah, right. Let's use this as a community board.
Honestly, because it sounds like some of y'all, you know, want those connections. So
yeah, this is y'all's chance.
Really appreciated hearing more about your work and process. Awesome. I have a connection or two in archives. Happy to help connect if it matches your archive plans hopes. Thank you, Kate.
Awesome. Thanks.
Texas Folklife. Okay. Yeah.
That was an honor. Great. We will sorry. We will definitely, let me do something really quick. Yeah, got you.
Yeah, our email, our contact. So we will have social media in the works. We gotta, you know, we're part of our timeline is getting that done. So we will have that. But in the meantime, if you want to contact us, you can do that at openchairatx@gmail.com. And our website is openchairatx.com.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moyo has been here this whole time.
I know. We need to like bring him.
He's not. He's gonna, you know,
stay over in the corner.
But he gave us libations for the day, so thank you.
It's not libation.
I'm an enabler now.
Yeah, a great one. A great team.
Yeah.
Anything else? Let's see. I think we're good.
I guess we could press done on that one.
All right.
Thank you guys so much for this. This was so helpful, and I learned a lot and took notes, and I can check back if anyone else has a question. But yeah, thank you so much for the time. It's always lovely getting to talk to you. Yeah, and keep us updated of any changes and new projects. I know you guys just keep getting bigger and more intentional and better.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity, Coca, and for thinking of us. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And thank y'all for tuning in. I hope y'all have a great evening. You rest, you eat well. And yeah, hopefully we'll see y'all soon.
Again, that contact is openchairatx.com and openchairatx@gmail.com. Don't spam us. Thanks.
Good night.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.